Warrant Article 5 is on the ballot. We will move on to the first of 4 citizen petitions. Is the petitioning party here to present the article?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I would like to move Article 6 as written.
Okay, and it reads, I should have done this first, and I apologize to you. Shall we adopt the policy that all district non-union employee contracts be approved by the voters?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I would like to move the article as written.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Anybody care to discuss or ask questions about Article 6? Okay, why don't you go first, please? We're going to let the school
Morris
board
Robert,
first.
30 Roberts Road.
Sir, can you, would you just sit for just a minute and let the school board's going to address it for a minute?
Okay. Sorry.
The school board unanimously does not recommend this article for a number of reasons. First of all, the hiring of employees and negotiating non-union employee contracts are the exclusive responsibility of the superintendent and the school board. Also, there are approximately 130 non-union employees in the Guilford School District. This includes secretaries, custodians, paraprofessionals, administrators, and food service records. This article gives the impression that taxpayers would have to vote on all 130 individual contracts, which seems to be unreasonable. Also, there's a concern that if an employee is hired after the election in March, that that contract would then be contingent upon the vote the next March. And it's unlikely that anybody would accept a job in the district not knowing if their position would be formally approved by the voters up to a year later.
I'll be on this one. This is the one Yes, sir. Thanks for your patience.
I have to say that I'm very confused about this kind of article.
Yeah, could you please state your name again and your residence?
Morris Robert, 30 Roberts Road.
Thank you.
How does adding fixed overhead costs to a process that is already in place, that is regulated by the budget and mandated by the budget in relations to how much can you spend for these different positions? How does this save the taxpayer money? I'm confused. This is spending more money for things that are currently already in place and are mandated by the budget that isn't going to be in place. This, to me, leaves me with one editorial comment. This is the kind of thing that, with an objective stated as saving taxpayer money, is leaving an unstated, different objective.
Thank you. Ma'am, do you want to answer this question?
Sure. Okay, so the objective here was to add more transparency. When the petitioners did a right to know request to the school board for the non-union contract employees, we received 18 contracts. So these are the ones we are referring to, the written contracts that the school board makes with the employees. Have more transparency for the public to see what is spent on the non-union staff. We thought it would be a good idea for the voters to take a look at these contracts. The recommendation is that a summary of the contract would go on the ballot, and just like the zoning ordinances, and so that the more detailed information is either available on the web or at the school clerk's office. Just to give you an example, we have an administrator's contract here for $103,000, 4-year contract where the school board has annual increases in salary. There's also 5 weeks of vacation in addition to the regular holidays. full cost for the 100% paid for health coverage and 100% paid for dental coverage. And so this is the type of thing when, you talk about the teacher's contract or the union's contract, and trying to get them to negotiate, we feel that it's also insightful to take a look at the administrators' pay. And of course, the school district's own study found that the administrators on average were paid $11,000 more than the districts that they chose to compare themselves to. So the objective of the petitioners is to just add more transparency for the public.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
I'd like to answer some of those concerns. One, the right to know law allows anybody at any time to go in and get any information they want at any time. Two, yes, we did the study on the SAU staff. One of the citizens, Terry Stewart, suggested that, and I agreed with Terry that that would be a good idea. One of the things we also discovered is that we have a staff, a very experienced SAU staff, and with experience comes additional cost. So although, yes, we are a per person higher cost, we also have a much greater level of experience in our SAU office.
Thank you.
Sydney Levy at 25 Bridget Circle. I just have a question, and our attorney might be able to answer this. If this reads all non-union employee contracts, are we skating on some thin ice with personnel matters that shouldn't be revealed if it doesn't just pertain to administrators?
No, this would be an advisory article because this is something that's controlled by the school board and the budget committee, and the school board and the superintendent, excuse me. But all in contracts between employees and the district are subject to the right to know law. Their employee salaries, employee contracts, those are public records. It's not a personnel policy. So I don't think that's the concern. The issue that I would have, or that I see with this, is the indication that it's a requirement that this be submitted in the concerns that were expressed by the school board. Does that mean all 130 individual contracts have to be voted on individually? What the heck does this mean? And the fact that it is something that is clearly within the jurisdiction of the school board and the budget committee, the school board and the superintendent and administration to determine those contracts within the budget that you folks approve. You ultimately are the folks who decide how much money they have to spend each year, and that's clearly your authority, but it's not to individually approve contracts with individuals.
Thank you. Yes.
Alan Voivod, 50 Deer Run Lane. May I address the council?
Why don't you ask the question for me and I'll defer.
Fair enough. As we were at the deliberative session last night, we were advised by the town's council that an advisory article of this nature, that it could be potentially confusing for a voter, where if it's advisory but the language of it says, shall we adopt the policy, that there could be some confusion. And additionally, we were also advised that we could not change the subject matter of the article as submitted, but that we could suggest revisions to it that did not eliminate the subject matter. I'd be curious as to council's opinion and whether it concurs with the town's council as expressed last night.
Yes, and you expressed it very well.
Then at this time, I would like to propose an amendment. I would like to change the language such that the words adopt the policy that are struck and replace it with advise the school board to consider a policy whereby all district non-union employee contracts be approved by the voters.
Okay. Do you have that written out?
I do.
Everybody understand the motion, and is there a seconder?
Nobody's got a second.
Is there a second?
Could you please reread that?
I will. I'm going to ask you to read it again. I can't quite follow how you, I'm going to ask you to write it out again, too, on a separate piece of paper, would you please?
Fair enough.
Here, I got that.
I would like to motion to amend the article to strike out the words "adopt the policy that" and to replace it with "advise the school board to consider a policy whereby," so that the new article shall read, "Shall we advise the school board to consider a policy whereby all district non-union employee contracts be approved by the voters?"
Thank you.
Is there a second? Okay, very good.
Don't mess with me.
I'm going to wait until I've got it written out before we proceed.
Don't do it. Don't. Because we want to get out of here. We want to move on to another line. I don't want to modify that tax cap. If they try to modify it. This one's going to pass. It's going to pass. Okay, if they modify the tax cap, I'll be pissed. That one I'll be pissed.
Okay, we have a motion, and it has been seconded to amend Article 6. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Skip Murphy, Guilford Glen Road. I do have a question, following up on the previous gentleman's observation. My question would be, does making this explicitly advisory substantially change the subject matter where this is a more definitive, shall we, versus merely advisory? And at that point, does that conflict with the RSA that was passed this past legislative session that basically said that doing so to petition warrants is illegal at this point?
No.
I would like to hear a further explanation rather than just two letters, please.
I get paid by the word.
Talk to the chairman.
No, I don't mean to make light of it. The legislation that was passed last year limits the ability to amend warrant articles at a Senate Bill 2 meeting to delete the subject matter. And I'll read the language to you so that we all have it. It is right there somewhere. No warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. The subject matter of this article relates to dealing with non-union employee contracts and the approval process and the explanation to voters. The subject matter is still present even after if this gentleman's motion is amended, if his motion is adopted to amend the article. That's the subject matter really relates to the question of whether or not non-union employee contracts are going to be approved by voters or not. This simply amends the requirement that it be done so and puts the decision to the school board to consider whether or not there should be a policy to accomplish the same thing, which would be to submit those contracts approved to voters. But you're still dealing with the issue of non-union employee contracts. That's the subject matter of the article, still present in the article. I think it's in keeping with the law, and that would be my reasoning regarding it. Okay?
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to amend?
Yes, Dale Dormady, Wild Acres Road. I was against any of the amendments to these petition articles last night for the following reason. I don't agree with this petition warrant article. As I understand it, whether it passes or not, it's simply advisory. The school board doesn't have to abide by it anyway. I think if it does pass, however, it provides a sort of political club that the petitioners can use over the heads of the school board. And I think that these amendments tend to make these petitions a bit more palatable and therefore give them a greater chance of passing. So I'd rather have them just stand on their own. So I would not be in favor of an amendment. That would make it more palatable and more likely to be passed. Even though if passed, it won't have any teeth to it other than what I mentioned previously.
Thank you.
Dave Horvath, 28 Timberlane, Guilford. Mr. Dormady just made a comment relative to a political club. I scratched my head on that one. In November of this past year, our school board put an advertisement in the paper seeking input to the community on policies, on their mission statement, all those other type of things. What better advisory to our school board would be the citizens' vote, and particularly an overwhelming citizens' vote, which we have seen in the past ignored, but nonetheless a citizens' vote. That doesn't make it a club. It provides a clear direction what the people of this community want. Not necessarily the people that are sitting here tonight, but the entire community by secret ballot on March 13th and what they want. It's not a club, it's a strong advisory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Voivod, Deer Run Lane. I just want to say I do share Mr. Dormady's sentiments. I would prefer not to see this on the ballot in general, but knowing that we are unable to strike it from it, I do feel that it is confusing as worded when it is only advisory, but the original language is such that it does not convey that to the voters, which is why I proposed the amendment.
Thank you.
I have a question for council again. At what point does a citizen petition no longer be simply advisory? Or do you consider all citizen petitions submitted for the ballot to be purely advisory?
No, any citizen's petition that raises and appropriates money has the effect of raising and appropriating money. So those wouldn't be advisory. That would have an actual effect. Citizens petitions that stray into areas that are defined by the statute as being the responsibility of the school board and the superintendent of schools are advisory. That's obviously these citizens petitions that come later, which are authorized by statute, are citizens petitions on the adoption of optional provisions. So, for example, a citizens petition that originally adopted SB 2 was a citizens petition that changed the form of your school district meeting. Citizens petitions that come later regarding delegating the authority of the determination of the default budget, which is specifically authorized by law and delegated as a choice to the citizens, has not simply advisory powers, but real powers recognized by our legislature. Same is true with respect to the tax cap petition. And same true with the date for the election of officers. Each of those are areas where the legislature has said citizens can petition this to do this, to take this action. The statutes have many of those. Citizens petition originally to form a committee for the study of the withdrawal or the modification of the SAU are specifically provided by statute. So there are many areas where the legislature has specifically indicated to citizens that these are areas over which citizens have control. Raising money, adopting any of these optional provisions that the legislature has created, those all have real power, real authority. when citizens express their opinion on the items, however, that are specifically delegated by the legislature to the superintendent or to the school board, then they're advisory only. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to amend? Then let's vote on the motion to amend. It will be a voice vote. All in favor of the motion to amend, which would change the proposed Article 6 to read as follows. Shall we advise the school board to consider a policy whereby all district non-union employee contracts be approved by the voters? All in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I'm going to ask for a vote because that was a little too close for me to call. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your right hand and hold it up.
You gotta get somebody.
Yeah, we need some help counting.
You might be able to do it just by a visual.
Yeah.
You might be able to do it just by a visual. Good person. Category.
The problem is I can't. I'll tell you what, let's make it a little bit easier. Would you stand up if you're voting in favor? The dark colors make it hard to see the arm line, so. Okay, that helps.
Now just call for the others, and you'll be able to see it instead of waiting. Now have these folks say more, and have the folks that don't say stand up. And you'll be able to visually see the fact.
See that? It's a little
Because I think that
Okay, no, I understand what you're saying. Okay, would you please be seated, and those that are opposed, please stand up. Okay, that makes it a lot easier. Very good. The motion passes. Thanks for changing the lighting. That's what was making it difficult. Thank you. Okay, so now we have, is there any further discussion on Article 6 as amended? There appearing to be none. The Article 6 as amended is now on the ballot.
Croc TV.